Greetings, beloveds, and welcome and peace be with you. I'm Reverend Mitzi, and welcome to Unity of Tempe. And we hope that you will be with us in person very soon. So, the ripple effect, your vital role, is our topic for today. Beloveds, your heart is your most precious gift. And I'm not talking about just your physical health. Your caring heart is the way that you send ripples of love into the world. It's how you show compassion and generosity and kindness. And it's how we turn me into we. Yet sometimes you might wonder, does anything that I do make a difference? Anyone ever thought that? Ever? Nobody. Put your hand up if you've ever. Yes, so we've thought that. And as you look at the world, you might see division and violence and lack of caring. And you might feel distressed and depressed and discombobulated. And you might wonder if sharing your beautiful heart, your gentle spirit, makes any impact whatsoever in creating a loving world for all. So this morning, my message is designed to support you in ways that you can renew and encourage and recharge yourself so that you can continue to send out those ripples of love and kindness and goodness in the world. And I'm sharing this message because it's very easy to get discouraged. And that's when it's even more crucial to lift each other up. And why is that? Why is it more crucial to lift each other up when we feel discouraged? Because when we lift someone up, we also lift up ourselves. And every single time that we share compassion and love and positivity, it does make a difference because it's the law of the universe. So I want to share a story with you. And if you've been around for any length of time at any of other places, you may have heard this story before because it's one of my favorite stories. And it's a story about the importance of reframing situations. So once upon a time, don't you love stories that start once upon a time? It's like, oh, phew, we can take a deep breath now, right? So once upon a time lived a mighty ruler named King Optima, who reigned over the realm of possibility. And to be a fair and a just king, he decided he should have an advisor, one who would guide him in all ways. So wise people traveled near and far to apply for this position. And the king, after days and days of trying to find the right and perfect person, grew weary until one day a bright-eyed boy appeared. "I have one qualification," said the boy. "I stand firm in the truth. I never lie. Whatever happens, whatever the concern, I will simply remind you, all for a good purpose, sire." So the king mulled this over. The boy would be at his side through every decision and circumstance, reminding him that everything that happens is for a good purpose. So with this in mind, the king would surely remain positive, and he would rule fairly and justly over the realm of possibility. Oh, you may have the position of counselor, as long as you swear an oath that no matter what the circumstance, whether you believe it in your heart to be good or bad, you will always remind me, all for a good purpose. And so the boy wanted the position, and so he agreed. So years passed, and the king and his counselor became really good friends. And one evening, the king was eating dinner with his counselor at his side, and while he was cutting a loaf of bread, the knife slipped, and it severed the king's thumb. And the king stared at his severed finger in disbelief. "All for a good purpose, sire," piped up the counselor. "What?" shouted the king. "How dare you declare this to be for a good purpose?" The king called for the guards, "Off to the dungeon with him. I do not want to see his face or hear from him ever again. Make sure he gets nothing but bread and water. We'll see what's for a good purpose." So months passed, and the king slowly adapted, using his thumbless hand. And while his hand healed, his heart did not. The counselor had so thoroughly enraged him that he could find no forgiveness whatsoever in his heart. And yet he wouldn't admit how much he really missed his trusted friend and companion. So one day, shortly after, the king, a long time later, the king was riding his horse and he heard a scream. And suddenly he was surrounded by headhunters with spears. And the leader examined the king's royal clothing and crown and then called out to the others. And when the headhunters began cheering, the king realized that they knew that they'd captured someone of great power and wealth, the perfect specimen. So they took the king to their village, and the leader pushed the king's head onto a chopping block and picked up an axe. The king closed his eyes. He knew that the end was nigh. And just as the axe was raised high, a warrior began screaming and pointing at the king's hand. The leader threw down the axe and shoved the king angrily off the block. The warrior dragged the king, the absolutely amazed king, out of the village. So King Optima realized that because he was missing his thumb, the headhunters didn't consider him the perfect specimen after all. And that's why they released him. Optima ran joyfully back to the castle, and suddenly he remembered his counselor. He sprinted to the dungeon and flung open the door, and the advisor, the little counselor, was so weak he could barely raise his head. "Wise counselor," the king cried, "you were right. It was all for a good purpose." Guilt and shame filled the king as he told the counselor about the vicious headhunters and his unexpected release. "Please forgive me," he begged. "I'm so very, very sorry." The counselor simply smiled. He just kept smiling and giggling to himself. "How can you sit there and smile after all I've done and all I've put you through?" the king asked, tears flowing down his face. "You're so weak you can hardly stand. You're covered in grime. How is it possible that you can smile after all the suffering you've undergone?" "Why, sire," the counselor laughed, "had I not been in this dungeon, I would have been out riding with you on Tuesday. And I would have been the perfect specimen." The end. So some of you may remember that story. I just love that story. But unity teaches us to be positive. And it's easy when things are going well, right? It's easy. "Oh, I'm so positive because everything's going well in my life." But what about when things are showing opposite of what you'd like to manifest? Or what about when your life or the lives of those you love are challenging? What about those days or seasons when life seems to sever your thumb? What about when the country is in turmoil? When we wonder if justice will prevail? What about when we look at horrific events and see members of our human family in tragedy or heinous situations? Are we supposed to run around then saying all for a good purpose? No. To do such a thing would be to really be devoid of compassion, because some events and some situations and horrific things just in that moment require us to just mourn and grieve. And some events and situations leave us wondering about our own safety and our own well-being. Life happens to us along the way of this human journey, and sometimes it is filled with joy. We are so happy, we're filled to overflowing with that. And other times, things show up along the way, all sorts of scary things. So why then did I share the King Optima story? And why is it a favorite of mine? And what can we take away from it? Well, I shared it because it aligns with a key unity teaching of how vitally important it is to train our minds daily to align with the most positive thought we can have at that moment. Let's say that together. I train my mind to align with the most positive thought I can have at any given moment. And as we do that, we become part of a ripple effect, which is one of our vital roles on this planet, to share light and be ambassadors of good. And to share the light, we have to acknowledge that, well, not everything is light. We have to be unafraid to look at what is not light. And as we do this, it's important not to get stuck in a sense of powerlessness. As Emma Curtis Hopkins, who was a teacher of teachers of many New Thought ministers, she's just wonderful. She said, the mind is like a delicate instrument which a breath of air will affect unless we know how to use and control it. Isn't that a great quote? Just love Emma Curtis Hopkins. So a helpful tool to support us in aligning our mind with the most positive thought that we can have at any given moment is the Abraham Hicks Emotional Guidance System. Who's heard of that? A few people, right? Abraham. Okay, so let's have a little look at it. Okay, so it's Abraham Hicks Emotional Guidance System. So here is the bottom. And we could say that we've probably all felt all of these emotions at some time. Joy, appreciation, empowerment, freedom, and love at the top. Passion, enthusiasm, eagerness, happiness, all of these. If there's one on there you've never felt, probably I'd be surprised, because they're really human emotions and we've felt them all at times. And so the goal of life is to live more up towards the top than down at the bottom. I mean, that's the goal of really that. But what do we do then? We actually have an individual emotion and vibration to each of our lives, our relationships, finances, health, as well as an overall emotion that we tend to vibrate at. Oh, that's fascinating. So we might find that we might want to vibrate right up there, but we might find that actually, if we're completely honest, we often vibrate somewhere else there on this chart. And while we have that, we could have a high vibration overall and be reasonably optimistic, but we might have a low vibration when it comes to a particular topic in our life. It might be finances. Oh, finances. Let me see. I'm vibrating up here spiritually, but then when I think of my finances, maybe I'm not so much. Or maybe it's about a particular situation in our life or a particular person, and we're like, that one person, then I'm vibrating somewhere else. So it's really important to know that we have this overall vibration, and then we have them to our different quality, our different things that we're working on in our life. So to use this scale effectively, first identify, and you don't have to shout this out, this is for you only, but be honest with yourself, where you currently are on the scale overall. Next, give yourself permission to reach for a higher vibration, and give yourself grace, which was our word for the day, today, as you climb upwards. And don't force yourself to move upwards, because what happens if we force ourselves to move upwards? What does it feel like? It feels inauthentic. If we're like, I am just not going to feel any more rage about this situation, I'm not going to do it. Well, we're still in rage, right? So if we force it, then we're not moving up. every single step, even one little step up, is something to be proud of yourself for. If something's triggered you and you're feeling towards the bottom of the scale, don't feel you have to jump immediately to joy. Don't feel that you are not being spiritual enough if you allow yourself to move up slowly. To do such a massive jump when emotions are coming up is not indicative of a spiritual life that is sustainable, but rather a spiritual life that bypasses emotions. So we want to be real with ourselves. Oh, and I'm going to be honest. This past week, I felt a lot of this. I felt a lot of discouragement. I was like, really? Here we are again? Seriously? Yeah, I don't know. I felt a lot of that. And so I sat with it. I sat with it on whatever day that was. I sat with it. I sat in it. I didn't go, well, I'm not being spiritual, so I must go here. I sat with it. And then the next day, I sat with it a bit more. And then gradually, I could feel myself moving up. But I did some things as well. We feel the emotions and we encourage ourselves not to get stuck there. Remember, feelings are something you have, not something you are. That's really important for me to remember. My feelings are not who I am. They're something I have. One day or 1 hour, you might feel overwhelmed and discouraged about how you feel. And as you feel it, remind yourself it will pass. Try to explore what the trigger was for you. That's a big thing. What triggered me? Why do I feel triggered right now about this? Do some deep breathing, go for a walk, pray, read, spend time in nature, connect to your spiritual practice, be gentle with yourself. That was a wonderful song we did last week from Karen Drucker, Be Gentle with Yourself. Deepak Chopra said, instead of resisting any emotion, the best way to dispel it is to enter it fully, embrace it, and see through your resistance. I love that. Remember, the spiritual path is a process. We're going to have good days and less good days. We're going to have good hours and less good hours. And if you're not feeling rosy and happy all the time, don't beat yourself up at all. It actually means you're being authentic in this human journey and not just bypassing your emotions. Because life is not always easy. Stuff comes up for us. Remind yourself, this is great. I shouldn't say that because I wrote it. But I think it's good. While I may not feel my most joyful self at the moment, I am still moving in the right direction. Give yourself permission to have those feelings. One moment at a time, I am authentically feeling my emotions and I am making progress. I am making progress. I am not getting stuck. Yes, I may feel this way right now. It's okay. Because I am moving forward. I'm not building a camp here. I'm not erecting a condo right here. I am moving forward. One way to move up the scale is through gratitude. We know that. So perhaps there's a suck lemon situation going on in your life right now, or the country, or the world, that you just can't wrap your head around. You feel an intense barrage of emotions. So you take a few deep breaths and acknowledge that at this moment, this situation sucks. Give yourself permission to simply be with it. Now think of something after you've taken those breaths. You've acknowledged it. Yeah. Oh, I'm confused about this. I don't understand. I don't understand where all these emotions are coming from. I'm confused. I'm annoyed. I'm feeling all these emotions. Take some breaths. Breathe into it. And the more we breathe into it, the more we feel ourselves shifting. Feel how you've been blessed by what has been given you in life. And feel yourself rising to a higher level of vibration. And another way to feel better and rise up the scale is through doing service. Joe is an amazing example of all this community service that our beloved Joe does and everyone who helps. By doing service, what do we do with ourselves? We get out of ourselves and we start thinking of another. And we can also move up the scale by doing something that brings us joy. If you're having a rough day, give yourself permission, if you can, to have a little solo dance party at your home or a solo karaoke at home and see how your vibration moves up. And when you return, you'll see things from a slightly different perspective, one that will be more supportive for you. And if it's more supportive for you, then it's more supportive for others. And anything that helps you raise your vibration, even 1 iota, sends out ripples of healing in the world because your light matters. The ripple you put into the world matters, even when you think it doesn't. So in conclusion, your spiritual journey isn't about becoming relentlessly positive, but about being authentic. It's about courageously seeking the most positive thought you can have in the moment, even if that's not a thought of joy. Maybe it's just moving one level up. Your heart is the source of your power. Your heart, put your hand on your heart. That is the source of your power right in there. That is where God resides within you. The divine within you. It sends out ripples of love and goodness that will lift others and in return lift you. Every act of compassion, every shared smile, go ahead and smile. Share a smile with somebody. Every shared smile, every kind word, every moment of understanding, they all send ripples of love into the world. You may not see the immediate effects, but they're there. Your light is powerful, and it does make a difference, beloveds. So to anchor this, there's a beautiful song that we've had several times before. It's by Faith Rivera, God Is.
Where I am, God is. Where I stand, God is standing strong. Where I breathe, God is breathing life in and out and through me. Ask me where I sing, God is. Where I dance, joy lives at my feet. Where I live, beauty's flowing free, in and out and through me. As me, for where I doubt, God is the faith in me. Where I cry, God is the comfort there. Where I seek, God is the answer. Here and now, forever and ever and ever. Where I speak, truth is. Where I work, love is my career. And where I play, God is playing boldly, in and out Oh, hey, yeah. Where I am, where I stand, where I play, where I work and breathe and move and feel, where I sing, where I dance, my dance, my dance, wherever I go, where I pray and take and give and leave. God is, life is, joy is, oh, God is.
Loving God, let us remember now and breathe into that God is where we are right at this moment. We're so grateful that not only is God here when we're feeling that joy, that empowerment, that love, that freedom, but every one of our emotions. Let us feel our emotions and not get stuck in them, but not either bypass them, but use them to deepen into our spiritual awareness of what it is to be spiritual beings having this very human experience. Let us be ever more compassionate with one another when they are going through their times where they are feeling anything other than the complete joy and empowerment. And let us also remember that joy does not come from external circumstances, but joy is the indwelling presence of God residing in us. We're so grateful, loving Spirit, and so it is. Amen. So let us say together, I am a beloved child of God, here to be an ambassador of good. And it is time for our blessings. So we invite you to take those blessings to your heart, and Carla will help with those. And so take them to your heart and just infuse those with your love and your passion as well. And so we'll say together, I am a joyful sharer of my good. I remember that as I give, I receive, and that God is my source. Yes, indeed. And so it is. If you prefer to give online, you can do so at unityoftempe.org. And Zelle is our preferred way of giving online, but we also have PayPal online also. And we pray for every single prayer that is in the prayer box or will be in the prayer box at any time also. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Spirit. We bless the giver and the receiver and the stewardship of their use, and so it is. Amen. Thank you. So we do partner with the Church of the Epiphany, we're located on the grounds of the Church of the Epiphany, and we do some things with them. We love doing things together with them. And one of the things we partner with is for Matthew's Crossing Food Bank. And if you'd like to donate anything, these are some most needed items. And diapers, large size for children, is also the thing that's really needed right now. And we're also doing our water drive. So if you see water on sale anywhere, pick up a case or whatever you can and bring it in. We're partnering with Epiphany to help keep our unhoused neighbors hydrated. And we're so grateful for Joe for doing that. So yes, and the concert that we've been announcing to benefit Ukraine, that's actually been postponed until October 5th. 7th, October 7th. So we took the slide down about that. There'll be more coming up. Okay, let us say together, the light of God surrounds us, The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. All is well, and we are grateful. Yes, indeed. Next week, beloveds, we invite you to be here in person. It's Father's Day. I don't know what we're going to do, but we'll do something. So, because we can't just celebrate mothers. We got to celebrate all of us, right? Just as we did for Mother's Day. So, beloveds online, have a beautiful week, and we hope to see you in person.